Podcaster? I hardly know her.
Welcome to the I Hardly Know Her podcast, hosted by me, Megan McCaleb. If there's one thing I've learned in this life, it's that I still have a lot to learn. This podcast is your invitation to expand your understanding on all sorts of topics and shake things up a little bit. Listen in and learn something new from the stories, professional insights, and a wide range of expertise shared by me and my incredible guests. And remember, my friends, you don't have to be a big deal to do big things. Hey, friends, welcome to another episode of the I Hardly Know Her podcast. I've got my producer, Jeanette, with me today, and our guest is full of vibrancy, and I can't wait to bring on a fellow performer and honestly, probably life enthusiast based off of reading her bio. I feel like she and I have some things that are fairly relatable. We have today Casi Kristant. See, I did it right that way? Yeah, I'm like, you guys ever have that thing where you're not sure you're going to say the name right? So you say it 100 times. Well, I got the first name down. And then usually I still go ahead and say it exactly the wrong way because that's what my brain wants to do. And I don't think I'm alone on that. So I'm giving you all permission to be graceful with yourselves. But I just am excited to share when there's people that are doing things that are in the space of art, because I think that art and performance is so connecting. And she's also a mama. So a little bit about Casi today. She is a mama to 3 fierce, adventurous, and imaginative kiddos, working full-time remotely for a software company and doing drag on the side. Casi has many stories to tell, and with over 20 years of experience in theater arts education, she is the proud resident drag mama for Young Actors Theater Camp and has created curriculum for several innovative programming, including the art of drag. I want to just bring her right on and get started talking about all this because I think this is really fun. And as a mom of 4 myself, I feel like it's really important to allow people, especially young people, to have autonomy and to express themselves and to be brave and confident. And a lot of us as adults have lost that spark. And so I'm always really excited to share with the world people who are actively bringing this goodness into life. So welcome to the show. It's so nice to have you, Casi.
Thank you, Megan. Thank you so much for having me today. I'm very excited to be here.
Yeah, awesome. Well, so tell me, just give me a little bit of a background of what draws you into performance. Like, what are the things that sparked you and fed the interest of becoming a performer? And what is it about that is so important to you in your life?
Yes, well, I've studied theater my whole life. I got bit with that bug early in kindergarten and just really have always loved being in front of an audience. And as an extrovert and an empath, I love helping people, telling the human story. So I've always loved doing theater, trained theater all throughout high school, junior high school, and college. And it wasn't until my now husband and I moved to Chicago that I discovered this art form of drag and what it can. You basically said you stole all of my buzzwords with how, freedom of expression and just the joy that it can really bring. So for me, performance is all about joy, spreading love, and telling the human story.
I love it. And now, Jeanette, I want to invite you to pop in for a hot minute too. As you guys all know, Jeanette is the producer of the podcast now and one of my partners in Improv Team Culture, bringing all this goodness into the nooks and crannies of the world. Talk to me a little bit about what your experience has been with Casi and some cross-pollination of theatrical things and life, and why you were also the one that recommended her. And I am so excited about the people that you've been bringing to the podcast because you have such fantastic connections. So I wanted to just hear a little bit from you too about all the goodness, and especially with your drive to bring people like Casi onto the show.
Sure. So Casi and I were in our 3rd level at Second City Conservatory together, and she missed our first class because she was out celebrating her 30th birthday almost 10 years ago. And people knew her from that class. I didn't know her. I'd had 1 and 2 with other people, and they kind of combined us after an audition. And someone else in our class was like, "Oh, Cassie's not here. She's celebrating her birthday. She's having karaoke." So I'm like, "Okay, well, I don't know this person, but she's doing karaoke for her 30th." So I'm like instantly jealous. And a woman in our class said, "You should come to her party." And I just like guffawed. I was like, "I've never met this person before." And she's like, "Trust me, you should come to her party. Cassie will love it." And I did not go to her party, but I went to the following week of class. I met Cassie, and then found out that she also got engaged for her 30th birthday. And so her now husband made this amazing engagement video that was masked as a 30th birthday video. So all of her loved ones basically said something to wish her happy birthday, and she posted it on social media. And so I got a really like intimate look into the person that Cassie was immediately, and I fell in love with her. I mean, her friends and family just had amazing things to say about her, and her partner put together this really wonderful, warm way to propose to her. And so, you know, we have a lot of similarities. We're both Italian. We did not plan it, but we're wearing the same color shirt, like the same tone and color shirt right
Megan,
now.
you missed the memo. You missed the royal blue memo.
Yeah. We both have a love for musical theater. Cassie is an insanely talented musical actress, and I just have a love for it. But we learned, you know, we went through Second City together, and I don't know, we just learned a lot from each other. It was really fun. I mean, you know, lean more into the like comedy style of stuff, but Cassie is such like a heartfelt professional performer. I mean, everything she does on stage is, like she said, she's an empath and I'm an empath. And I don't know, there's just, I don't know what else to say. I'm going to like get emotional probably, but yeah, we just have we look at the world very similarly, but we also trust that the other person is going to, you know, be honest with us if feel like we're being irrational. We both are dealing with anxiety pretty much 24/7. And so we can talk each other off of like anxiety ledges. And there's just like a calmness in our similar freneticness, if that makes sense. And yeah, I had the benefit of moving into the apartment downstairs from her because the person who owned the building that she was in moved out, and they moved into their apartment, and she was like, "Do you want to move downstairs?" And so I got to live like everyone's like TGIF sitcom dream and live underneath like one of my best friends in Chicago for 2 years, and we got really close. And yeah, it was way too short. But you know, her kids are, you know, my niece and nephews, and they call me Aunt Jet. Yeah, very lovingly. We're Uncle Benny and Aunt Jet. Yeah, I don't know. She's just,
I love it.
Yeah, thanks for letting me gush about Cassie for a little bit.
No, I didn't know. I was about to cry too. I'm like getting emotional. This is a nice gift for me as well. Yes.
Yeah.
See, Jeanette went to Second City to continue her career in comedy, and but like I went hoping Second City would make me funny, but Jeanette's actually very funny. And so for her, I love that she was like, yeah, like for me, Jeanette was like, for me, Second City was about like studying comedy, and for Cassie, you know, she's just a really nice person.
Yeah. Well, I can tell from that you're actually very funny. Yeah, I feel like I really missed out on not getting to. I grew up in Idaho, which is not near all of these things, and whatever life routes did not take me to where I would get to go explore in training in places like that. But I did take an intensive one weekend. You know, it's nothing to like brag about, other than I was like, I can't believe some people get to do this. Like they get to be there for years and we form these bonds and, you know, do all these different shows. And I always love to go see the different shows. And I think it's interesting too, when you are in a performance space and you're learning all of these different things and seeing the value of how much they can serve the world around us, and teaching, whether we're teaching other performers or other humans how to use things that are from the very powerful space of performance. It's just like such a powerful vessel for humanity and self-expression and connection. And I don't know where I'm going with it other than I'm just like, there's so many good things in there. And I feel like I just got this tiny little taste and very envious of the things that I hear about stories of Jeanette and her various comrades of comedy. Oh, I know where I was going. Is people hear about these things and then they're like, oh, can these skills like make me funny? Or people, and I'm like, no, but people do all have their own sense of humor. I will say that's one of the things that, like, whatever people think is funny, likely someone else will think it's funny if you're using it in the right way. Like if you're not trying to be mean spirited and punch down, as I learned in stand up, the different things like that. But I think it's funny that you're like, oh, can this place teach me to be funny? And no doubt don't you have to be funny and smart and charismatic to stay on board at Second City? Or don't they weed people out if they're just like stick in the mud?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I would think so.
But
Anyway.
I did graduate and get my Second City
Casi
t-shirt
is
and my
funny.
t-shirt.
I did not
I
mean
know, I'm teasing
to
you.
make
Oh, I
it
have no
sound
doubt.
like that.
No, I have no doubt.
But
But I'm
Casi is a
definitely-
performer.
I'm a performer, but like I'm the kind of funny where I like to laugh at myself, and I'm like, everybody's laughing because I'm like, I'm so funny, right? I'm funny, that kind of funny.
Yeah, I love it. So I have only very minimally been immersed in a couple of pockets of time in like drag space, and I actually did pole dancing for a while, and that community was full of my favorite people in the community, honestly, because they put on the best shows, the burlesque shows and all the different things. And I'm fascinated by it. And so I want to talk, obviously diving in there. What drew you in? What do you love about it? What are you doing with it on a regular basis? What are all the yummy things that people need to like really understand? And I'm talking like beyond the peripheral of this is an art form that is heavily under fire.
Yes.
So I want people to understand like what are the positive things? Why is it so fun? Like I don't want to steal all the good the juicy words.
Yeah. And as you're talking, I'm like doing little post-its in my brain of all of the things I want to make sure I say, because you're right. It is a very important time to be discussing drag.
Yeah.
As someone who doesn't enjoy discussing politics in general, because I always feel like I don't have all of the information. So I never want to discuss politics because I'm afraid of someone saying you're not informed enough. So for me, doing drag right now at this time and having it be a part of education and storytelling and theater arts, especially with youth, is just such an important way for me to be a part of the political community and be a part of this next generation of young artists, not just of young artists, but of our youth, our next generation of children who are going to be our next dentists, our next confident, every occupation. I always say like dentists, lawyers, but then I want to say other things like plumbers and servers and content creators, right? But backing up a bit before I get up on that political pedestal soapbox, I first found drag with the amazing performance artist Taylor Mack. And if you don't know Taylor, this is your time to Google this human and just see the art that this person is putting in the world. Taylor uses Judy as a pronoun. And that's even something, knowing Taylor and Judy's work for a while, I still like to talk about because of the importance it brings around pronouns and how wonderful it is to use them properly. But Taylor did a show called The Lily's Revenge at the Magic Theater in San Francisco years ago. And it was a 5-act show. It was 5 hours long. And the experience was supposed to be like being at a wedding. And I was in acts 1, 3, and 5 as the bride. And there was drag queens that they had pulled local drag and guests artists. And it was just this extravaganza, this piece of art. And then several years later, I got to do another piece with Taylor called the 24-hour music, history of music, blah, long title. And it was a series of 4-hour shows. And that's where I first found drag and didn't really realize I was a performer. Like I was the musical theater girl that was working with all of the drag artists. And so it was still very untouchable for me. but it was amazing to be around these drag queens, these confident humans. At that time, it was all men dressing up as women.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm in Chicago. So as Jeanette mentioned, this is this Renaissance time for myself, meeting Jeanette and having that amazing human in my life. But also the time my husband and I didn't have kids yet. And we were like, let's just go live somewhere really cool and do some amazing art before we have children and a mortgage. And in Chicago, I found Snow White and the Seven Drag Queens. With the company was then called Min Tangent Productions. Now Tony, the producer, uses Drag Daddy Productions in Louisville. But I was Snow White again. They cast me as like the musical theater girl, I was supposed to be the straight guy in the comedy role with all of the other drag queens, and they were local to Chicago drag queens. And then there was a female playing the queen who considered herself a drag queen. And she said, well, I guess I'm a bio queen. And now it's even evolved because bio queen is now considered an offensive thing to say to some people because it's biological female. And so, femme queen, there's all these different terminologies, and I'm still learning myself. But I said, Kat Sass, who is now my drag mother, I said to them, how can I do this if I'm a female? And that my dragucation began at that point. In the middle of Hydrate, Kat Sass had me kneel to the ground and got a martini and like dubbed me a drag queen. Was like, if you want to do drag, you can do it now. And what I love about drag as an artist is it allows me to do the type of art I want to do, right? As performers, as musical theater, growing up doing musical theater, and even Shakespeare, right? You're auditioning for a role with a scripted piece of work that someone's written, right? And here you're getting to do what you want to do and be who you want to be.
Yeah. So how has it been going?
Really awesome. I feel like I'm in a new renaissance currently. We've moved to a new area. We're in the Berkshires of Western Mass, and haven't even been here a year, but already I've immersed myself in the community here, this small, beautiful community, and have brought Poppy DaBubbly, my drag persona, to the Berkshires. And so I'm kind of reinventing what I want this to be for myself. But I'm started doing music classes for kids, Bebop with Poppy. So I'm doing toddler music classes. I'm doing drag story hours. In June, I won the Majesty of the Berkshires title in a drag pageant. So I'm a title holder, which feels so fun to say. And I'm a volunteer for Berkshire Pride. I'm on the Pride committee. So it's a really wonderful way to create community for my 3 kids, a safe space for them to be a part of.
How old are your kids?
So I have Watson just turned 2, Winifred's almost 4, and Wesley will be 7 in November.
Oh,
My
awesome.
W's, my 3 W's.
I love it. I want to, can we work through some of the things that people are struggling with in the communities in our world so we can maybe calm down with because I realize that there are bad people everywhere. And so I'm sure that in any industry, there's going to be challenges. And I watch a lot of different hot topics, especially as a mother, because I want to make sure that I'm educating my children so that they know what to be looking for as dangerous things in the community and online and whatever. And I just want to help people understand, how can we differentiate where safe spaces are versus unsafe spaces? Is that something you're comfortable talking to?
Oh, absolutely. And you hit the nail on the head there. As a mother, one of the things that I'm constantly making sure is that what I'm doing is, because it's become so political, that I'm continuing to make safe choices for them. I did a specific class that got some very intense and serious hate and some threats. And so I had to take a step back and evaluate, are the decisions that I'm making safe for my family? Of course we can't let threats and hate stop us, right? We have to keep continuing to create and to do the art, and part of it's the education aspect, right?
Yeah.
With over 20 years of education, of theater teaching, and then also education now about being, I'm safe space certified, and making sure that education is the key
Mhm.
to making change. One thing that I've had said to me several times is that by being a cis female drag queen, it's an easier pill to swallow for
Mhm.
families, and I see my role in that. I see that because I'm female, maybe it is a little bit easier for some people to help make the transition to understanding. But then also, when I hear that, I'm thinking to myself, but then are we just continuing to be a part of the problem? Even
Right.
here in the Berkshires, this extremely lovely community. What's the word I want? It's a very liberal community. I
Mhm.
still have several people. When I did a drag story hour at my kids' preschool, I had people say, but you're a girl. How can you be doing drag? I have that conversation often. And even working with drag queens who are male presenting, doing drag as females, I can feel the tension with them, of me constantly being like, you don't belong here, and working to
Mhm.
say, but I do belong here.
Yeah. It's so interesting to me, and I always feel like I'm kind of beating my head against the wall because I'm like, my kids, and maybe it's because I'm trying to teach them this, that I'm like, kids in general are very open and understanding, and it's not even a thought that things are a problem until they've been taught something could be a problem. And um yeah, I think this is
Well,
just an interesting space.
yes, and so with my now, Winifred, my daughter's almost 4, and, she's at the age where there's boys and there's girls, and so I'm constantly, she'll say, "But that's a girl's toy," and I said, "Toys don't have a
Mhm.
gender," helping her remember that,
Yeah.
and have, and we have a beautiful queer library, and there's this one book, Pronouns. It's a very simple book. It starts with, "How do you know what people wanna be called? Ask."
Yeah.
And,
Right.
and then it's like he, and it's several people, and she would point and say, "But that's a girl." And I said, "They might look that way to you, but that's how they choose to look, but they choose to feel like a he, like they feel like a he." And so
Yeah.
it's starting to sink in with her. And the reason I know it's working, or,
Mhm.
what I'm doing is getting through is, my son, who's almost 7, was at one of my drag story hours, and we were reading that book. And I said, "Does anybody want to share their pronouns in the room?" And Wesley said, "I'm a he, but I think but I also will go by they." And I said, "Oh,
Mhm.
okay. Do you want to be he more often?" And he said, "I don't know, but I could be a he or a they.
Yeah.
And I had just this moment where my internal mother monologue was like, "Don't change the way your face looks," but I want to cry right now with tears of
Yeah.
joy. But
Right.
this is normal, and this should be normal.
Yeah.
Um, and the other piece of that I like to teach is that it is okay to make mistakes, and you make a simple adjustment, or a simple apology and an adjustment, and move on, right?
Right.
So I find myself, when we're in the store, instead of saying, with a clerk, saying she, saying this employee,
Mhm.
instead of, to my kids, is, "You're such a big boy, you're such a big girl, you're such a big kid. I'm so
Yeah.
proud of you," right? Small adjustments that we don't even think about making, that make such a huge difference.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
Putting she, her in next to my name as a label, just to make it a safe space for other people to, um, they don't have to ask, because I've already presented it and made it easy for people.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I saw a post that annoyed me. Well, one of many, fairly recently, of a fella who was like, this new fandangled use of pronouns is ridiculous. He's like, we don't need pronouns. We've never used them. I'm like, so I don't usually even bother commenting. I did in this case. I was like, so none of them at all. So you don't want to be a he anymore? Because it's like sometimes the most basic thing that I'm like,
I want to just gently invite people to say, we've already been using the things. And it might be that if you are a he and you're uncomfortable being called something else, so are other people uncomfortable if we're calling them something else that they don't want to be identified as. And it's just very interesting.
Yeah, without the idea of getting the pronoun correct, I think what we have to teach is that the ask part first, right?
Yeah.
Because I think that's the part that people aren't getting is the assumption part, I guess I should say, is that we're always making assumptions, and we can't do that. We have to be asking.
Totally.
Yeah, there's something too that I have a non-binary nibbling, which is a gender neutral term for I'm Mo's aunt. So Mo is my nibbling. And there's people in the family, understandably so, that are having a hard time adjusting. And Mo was named something else, but Mo now goes by Mo. And I said, it's the same exact thing. I mean, we change our names once we come into an identity. We change our names, or we say, I'd rather go by this, or I don't feel like this. A lot of people go by their middle names. A lot of people change. How you get Dick from Richard is beyond me, but respect. If you want to be called Dick, I'm going to call you Dick. You know what I mean? And it's the same thing. It's just like your identity doesn't feel like that thing that was assigned to you at some point. So can't I take the agency to reassign what I go by? It's the same thing.
You just used my favorite example when people say, I just don't understand pronouns. I said, but, I met them as a she. How can I now call them a they? It's like, well, I know a majority of my friends from high school know me as Casi Maggio, but when I married my partner, I chose to become Casi Kristant. And so that's the easiest way for people to just get that light bulb and to make that switch, and it is difficult because I still have friends that call me Casi Maggio, and I've had people correct themselves and people that think, oh, well, I've always known her as Casi Maggio, so she's going to be Casi Maggio to me. And to that, there's no identity attached to it for me. I still feel like Casi Maggio. I still kept it in the middle there because I love it so much. But that's a really digestible switch. I was using it with a gentleman, and he just recently he told me he just recently came out, and so he's new to the queer community. And I said, oh, I have the same thing in common. This year, I'm turning 40 in October. I've decided to use a queer label for myself. And so we were having that connection and conversation. And he spoke about somebody that was there speaking at this event. And I said, oh, just so you know, for future, that person uses they pronouns. And he said, I don't believe in pronouns. And in my head, that was so confusing because he just came out and he's in a part of the queer community. For me, that's like, they go together. But for this person, it's still parts of what they're struggling with. And I said, I understand, I hear that. And we went through the Casi Maggio Kristant explanation, but for some people, it's just sometimes taking those baby steps, right? This person finally was able to own a piece of their identity that they hadn't for so long. And it's like, okay, now I can tell people that I'm gay. I can have this be a part of my conversation with new people I meet. And then my hope for them is that soon they'll be able to offer the same generosity to others that they meet that use different pronouns.
Yeah. I love it. It seems like a big challenge that just little adjustments, if everyone could just unclench for a minute.
And it's okay. It's okay to make a mistake. Even you at the beginning of the podcast were like, I said this name so many times, and I give yourself grace. That's just when you say, oh, I'm sorry, and move on,
Yeah. So you mentioned that you are a certified safe space technician. What's the right word?
With Berkshire Pride. Yeah. Berkshire Pride is offering safe space. There we go. Certification.
Yeah. Okay.
And it's essentially a program that you can go through to discuss its pronouns and how to support people in all communities, essentially.
Is this
Um,
something that's available to like
yeah,
anybody?
if you go
Like,
to berkshirepride.org, there's
okay.
information about it. Thank you
All
for
right.
letting
We'll
me
make
plug
sure to
that.
drop the link in the notes on that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what, as you have continued to evolve in your own person and all the different things that you're
Mhm.
doing creatively and as a mother and an individual, what are some of the things that you've really seen as growth by following your path to the truest you?
Whew, that's such a good question. So in January, one of my favorite people turned 40, El Bay. El uses they them pronouns and had this beautiful community of queer artists there for their 40th birthday. And there was in a weekend in the Catskills. And I went and I the whole time I'm like, oh, do I fit in with this group of people because I don't use the labels they use? And even then I'm still constantly questioning myself, even though I feel like I'm so confident. And in the middle of a hot tub, in the like under the stars in the sky of the Catskills, a new trans friend that I met said to me, "But you do drag, so you're constantly exploring gender and exploring boundaries and art, and you can use a queer label if you'd like." I was like,
Mm.
"Oh, I've been given permission to finally do this thing I've always wanted to do because I was always so concerned because I'm in a hetero-facing relationship."
Mhm.
Marriage, that I'm very happy with my partner, that I couldn't use a queer label, or else people would think that I was a poser, you know?
Oh, interesting.
So for me, that was a huge, huge growth moment. And I think with Camp YATC that you mentioned at the beginning, where I'm the resident drag mama, I see hundreds of students a session. I go every summer, but I'm going to be going this October and again in the winter camp because we have so many students that want this. I'm
Mm.
seeing that a lot of my growth is coming from from these young artists. Uh, they're always so much more current and hip than I am. And I get to, I did this in my art of drag. Okay, let's explore feminine energy. Let's explore masculine energy. And one of the students asked, why aren't we exploring non binary energy? And I was like, you're right. Why aren't we? Let's go. Let's explore.
Mhm.
Thank you. Yes. So I think watching these young artists and what they're giving to me is teaching me so much about myself as a teacher and what they want to learn and what I can teach them.
Mm.
And then the final element to that is being a mother. Because my whole life I've always known I was going to be a mom and I was going to have kids. And as I'm sure you can attest to, Megan, it's so hard. And I always thought I was going to be an amazing mother and it would become easy to me. And it's not, but it's
Mhm.
the most joyful gift in the whole world. And so
Mhm.
they are teaching me new levels of patience, new levels of discovery, new ways to say yes and to have have imagination and play and to be present,
Yeah.
to forgive yourself. And one of the best lessons I learned with my kids is when I make a mistake, like I said earlier, it's how I recover from my mistake with them. When I yell at them,
Mhm.
it's how I say, "Wow, mom got real frustrated and I wasn't able to control my emotions. What could I have done better? Let's talk about it."
Yes.
And having those recovery moments with them and with my students. I love asking them at the end of class, "What did I do wrong? What can I
Mm.
do better? What did you wish I taught you?"
Mm.
So, making it collaborative
Oh
too.
man, that is so good. Oh yeah, like I've all the books that I can consume or whatever, and I'm like, how do I be a better parent? And then I'm like, oh well, a lot of this starts with my own self-regulation and then being honest about it. And
Mhm.
one of the things, and this is just a little parenting tip, if for anyone that's out there listening, whether they want it or not. One of these moments that I had as a huge breakthrough, though, was when I really had this awareness that they're not my kids, they're individuals that
Mm.
I happen to get an opportunity to birth so they could have their individual unique personal experience. And I am fortunate to get to try to be a guide of options and resources. And I remember a shift a few years ago when I was really heavy into like, oh my gosh, I don't want to be a bad mom, and just reading all these different books. And I don't know what exactly sparked it, but I was like, I'm not here to control them. I'm not here to teach them like exactly what to think. It's just like how to use their brains. And it was really a nice little lift of pressure in some ways, because a lot of the parenting thing is just really, as you said, it's very challenging. There's
Yeah.
a lot of layers to it. And the one thing that I get reassured by is coming back to like, I just got to do my best to help empower them to forge their own path and to think creatively and to be kind to themselves and others. And some of the very basic things that honestly, all the parenting books I've read, I'm like, adults all need to read these so we can be more patient and, as you said, graceful with ourselves. We're all going to biff it. And this life is a learning process. That's what we're here for.
Exactly.
I love all of this. Oh man, there's so many different things that I feel like I would want to deep dive in. I feel like I don't, there's so many things, but I love your energy on when you're talking about like these things that you're doing for work. And I would love to know if there is anything, is there anything right now that you're like just super excited about in life, in work, in the world? Like what are you super stoked about right now?
I have a couple things. I feel like I'm in this Poppy's in this renaissance right now.
Yeah.
I just did a drag brunch, and I'm producing a show, so I'll make sure and get you that information in the Berkshires. It's called Rebel and Poppy Win a Talent Show, and it's such a fun, silly concept because we all did talent shows in high school. Well, or if you didn't go to one, you saw one. Your friend did one, right? We know of that concept, and the idea is that like we're trying to what is it? The demons. We're trying to exercise the demons of never winning talent shows in high school and elementary school. And so we'll always win our own talent show. But it's a wonderful way to get talent in the community to participate too. Not just drag queens. There will be drag queens, but there's also going to be a circus performer, a burlesque performer, a swing dancing couple. And I think it's so cool because it's a way to just share local artists with the community. Another fun thing is I have a brilliant friend who's a playwright, Lauren Gunderson, and she is so fierce and produced all over the world. And she talked to me after I did my drag camp. And she was like, Cassie, this is a musical. And so we started having conversations about writing a musical, kind of a Poppy DaBubbly, teaches theater, drag, the art of drag, the drag camp, the threats we received, how we persevered through. And that idea is fun. I started writing a children's book because I was like, this is a kid's book on top. So I'm starting all of these little projects. And then, like I said, I haven't even been in the Berkshires for a year, but there's this thing, the Berkshire Beer Trail, where 7 breweries all came together and you get your passport and you get it stamped. And we were at one, I'm outside with the kids. My husband walks in and the brewmaster says, hey, what are you doing today? My husband said, oh, I just went to my wife's drag show. And the person was like, oh, is your wife Poppy DaBubbly? And that like cheers, everybody knows your name moment was so wonderful to me because for me, it's not about like fame. I want everyone to know who I am. For me, it's about being a part of a community and like telling a community story. And so I told Chris when we got home, I was like, I did it. People already know, like we're already making changes here, So that was a really exciting moment for me as well, having my cheers like Poppy DaBubbly moment.
I love that. That's so good. Thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show. I hope that this is just like a start to some conversations that people have been too nervous to have, to like be more curious about things that maybe you just haven't spent enough time around. I so appreciate you bringing such kind, open energy and just delight into the ear space, and for the people, the few people that are starting to follow us on the video components. So I'm like so excited to have video involved now. But there's really so many powerful, positive, connecting things, so many fun ways to have healthy outlets of creativity, and just all the good things that can be amplified when we are in our flow and bringing art in a way that inspires and brings love and inclusivity and all the good things. So appreciate you bringing this into the space of the I Hardly Know Her podcast listeners. And I feel like we should get you on the docket again sometime, because I'm like, I had some kind of deep things, but I'm like, I get scared sometimes bringing deep things in. And I know
Oh, I
some of
would
my
love it.
listeners need baby steps.
Yeah, this is
Yeah.
our baby step. This could be part 1 of 2 sessions with Pop. Next time I'll just come as next time I'll come as Poppy, and we can
That would be
we
great.
can talk to Poppy. But
Okay, that sounds like a perfect deal. I love that so much. So yes, thank you very much for coming on the show. Thank you, Jeanette, for connecting Cassie to me for this episode. And thank you to the listeners out there exploring new topics, expanding your comfort zones, your information around all sorts of different topics on the I Hardly Know Her podcast. This is a space where we get to bring people who love to share stories and experiences and bring connectivity. And if you guys have a story that you're interested in sharing, you know that Jeanette and I love bringing better communication skills, storytelling strategies into the workplace and into your personal life, either with improv team culture, team events in your workplace, or the Ovation speaker training. If you feel like you might want to get on stage someday and share your story and your expertise with the world. Thanks for tuning in, and we will catch you all next time. Thanks again, Cassie.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to the I Hardly Know Her podcast. For information about leadership workshops, public speaker training, and all things kooky Megan, check out improvteamculture.com. We'll catch you next time.